All right, let's talk about data analytics. And I know what some of you might be thinking, spreadsheets, right? Endless rows and columns of numbers. Well, I want you to just throw that image out the window for a minute. Because today, we're going to look at this field as something way more exciting. Think of it more like detective work. So, grab your magnifying glass and let's start the investigation.
First up, let me ask you a really simple question. How do you choose a restaurant for dinner? You might just think it's a gut feeling like, I feel like tacos tonight. But what's actually happening in your brain is a pretty sophisticated analytical process. I mean, think about what you do. You're gathering evidence. You check the star ratings. That's your quantitative data, the hard numbers. You read the reviews. That's qualitative data, what people are actually saying. You compare prices. You look at pictures of the food. You're collecting all these clues to solve a really important mystery, how to avoid a bad meal. And if you do any of that, well, congratulations. You're a data analyst. Seriously, because that exact logic, gathering information, looking for patterns, and then making an informed decision is literally the heart and soul of what data analytics is all about.
So here's the official definition for you. Data analytics is the science of sifting through raw data to discover patterns, draw conclusions, and, this is the key part, make informed decisions. It's all about turning messy, chaotic information into a clear signal that can actually drive a business forward.
And this is where that detective analogy really just clicks into place. A data analyst is a detective for the modern world. Your crime scene? It's a data set. And instead of hunting for a suspect, you're hunting for an insight. You collect the evidence, you examine the clues, and you connect the dots to solve a real business mystery.
Now, just like any good detective, your investigation gets deeper and more interesting depending on the questions you ask. It's not just one thing. Think of it like you're climbing a pyramid of understanding. There are 4 distinct levels of insight you can uncover, and each one builds on the last. Let's see how that works.
So check this out. It all starts at the most basic level with descriptive analytics. This is just answering what happened. So for example, sales dropped 15% last month. Simple fact. But then you got to ask the next logical question, which brings us to diagnostic analytics. This is the why did it happen part. Maybe it's because a competitor launched a discount. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. From there, we try to look into our crystal ball with predictive analytics. What will happen? Based on trends, maybe sales will likely increase by 10%. But the real magic, the top of the pyramid, is prescriptive analytics. This tells us what should we do. And the final recommendation might be launch a loyalty program. See that? We went from a simple fact to a full-blown strategic action plan.
Let's make this super real with an example we all know, Netflix. So descriptive for them is seeing that, hey, 80% of users watched a show this week. Okay, cool. Diagnostic is them asking why and realizing, oh, viewership is up because that hot new series just dropped. Then comes predictive. They look at your viewing history and guess, this user will probably enjoy sci-fi movies. And prescriptive? That's what you see every time you log in. They take that prediction and put Stranger Things right at the top of your screen. That's the 4 levels in action.
You know, every good detective follows a process. They have a method, and data analytics is no different. There's a structured methodology that guides an analyst all the way from a vague problem to a concrete solution. It's called the Data Analytics Lifecycle. Here are the 7 key steps for cracking any case. You start by defining the problem, because asking the right question is half the battle. Then you collect the data. You gather your evidence. Step 3 is crucial. You clean and prepare it. We'll come back to that one. After that, you analyze it for patterns, interpret the results to find the story, communicate those findings to stakeholders, and finally, help the business take action. But let's pause on step 3 for a second. You might be shocked to learn how much of the job that one step really is.
60 to 80%. No, that is not a typo. That is a huge chunk of time that most analysts spend on just one part of the whole process. And that time is all spent on cleaning and preparing the data. Now, why so much? Well, because real-world data is messy. It's full of errors, missing values, inconsistent formats, you name it. So before you can find any of those brilliant insights, you have to do the painstaking work of making sure your evidence is actually reliable. It's the classic principle, garbage in, garbage out. Okay, so we know the process, we know the how, but who are these data detectives in the real world? What do they actually do all day, and where do they work?
Well, a data analyst wears a whole bunch of different hats. They're not just crunching numbers. A huge part of the job is communication, creating reports and visuals that make the findings clear. They're also a business partner, working with different teams to really understand their needs.
And at their core, they're professional problem solvers, translating a tough business challenge into a question that data can actually answer.
And these detectives are in demand absolutely everywhere. In banking and finance, they're the ones hunting for fraud. In healthcare, they're helping to predict patient outcomes to improve care. In retail, they're analyzing all of our shopping habits. And in tech, they're optimizing the apps and websites we use every single day.
And because analytics is so widespread, it offers a really fantastic career path with a ton of room for growth. So let's take a quick look at how someone can go from being a rookie detective to, well, the chief of the entire department.
So you might start out as a data analyst, creating reports and learning the ropes. From there, you could become a senior analyst, leading more complex projects, or maybe you specialize and become a data scientist, building predictive models. As you grow, you might manage an entire analytics manager, and eventually, you could even become a chief data officer, setting the data strategy for an entire company at the executive level.
So let's recap the key clues from today's investigation. First, data analytics is all about turning that raw data into insights you can actually act on. Second, there are those 4 levels of analytics, climbing from what happened all the way up to what we should do. Third, every project follows that 7-step life cycle. And finally, these data detectives are critical players in almost every industry you can possibly imagine. Ultimately, data isn't just a collection of numbers in a spreadsheet. It's a collection of stories, just waiting to be told. Stories about customers, about a business, about our world. The only question is, are you ready to listen? Thanks for tuning in.